The blood-red sun dipped low on the horizon as Olivia Blackburn stepped off the dusty stagecoach in Redemption Springs, clutching nothing but a worn carpet bag and the crumpled letter that had drawn her west to this desolate town in the Arizona Territory of 1883. The town seemed to exist in a perpetual state of dust and tension, its weathered buildings standing defiant against the harsh landscape like forgotten tombstones. "Last stop, madam," the driver announced, tossing down her trunk with little ceremony. "Welcome to Redemption Springs." The journey from Boston had been grueling 6 days of jarring roads, uncomfortable accommodations, and the constant anxiety of venturing into the unknown. But Olivia had made her decision when her brother's letter arrived describing his illness. Now James was gone, leaving her his modest ranch and a town full of strangers who'd never seen a city woman like her before. "You'll be wanting the boarding house, I expect," said an elderly woman who had appeared beside her, eyeing Olivia's impractical dress with its high collar and fine stitching. "I'm Martha Wilkins, run the general store with my husband." "Thank you," Olivia replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I'm Olivia Blackburn. My brother was James Blackburn." Martha's expression softened immediately. James was a good man. Terrible shame about his passing. Pneumonia takes the strongest of us out here. She paused, squinting at Olivia. "You're the schoolteacher from back east, then?" "I was," Olivia admitted, "but I've come to see to my brother's affairs and his property." Martha's eyebrows shot up. "The Circle B? You can't mean to run it yourself?" Before Olivia could respond, the saloon doors across the street burst open. A man stumbled out, followed by the unmistakable sounds of a brawl inside. Even from a distance, Olivia could see the hard lines of his face, the dangerous set of his shoulders beneath a black duster coat. His eyes, cold as winter steel, scanned the street before landing on Olivia. "That's him," Martha whispered, her voice dropping. "Cole Lawson. Owns the biggest spread in the territory. The Double L Ranch borders your brother's land." She leaned closer. "Stay clear of that one, Miss Blackburn. They say he's too hard to love. Too hard for anything except making enemies and breaking hearts." Cole Lawson's gaze lingered on Olivia for one unsettling moment before he turned away, mounting a magnificent black stallion with practiced ease. He rode off in a cloud of dust, leaving Olivia with a strange, fluttering sensation in her chest that she attributed to fear and exhaustion. "Come along," Martha said, taking Olivia's arm. "Let's get you settled at Mrs. Peterson's boarding house. Tomorrow's soon enough to face your troubles." But Olivia knew, watching the retreating figure of the mysterious rancher, that her troubles had already begun. The boarding house was a tidy two-story structure with white lace curtains that seemed out of place among Redemption Springs' weathered buildings. Mrs. Peterson, a robust widow with a no-nonsense demeanor, showed Olivia to a small but clean room on the second floor. "Breakfast at 6, dinner at noon, supper at 6, the landlady explained. "No gentlemen callers in the rooms, no alcohol, and no coming in after 9. That'll be $1.50 a week, in advance." Olivia paid without complaint, though the sum represented a significant portion of her dwindling funds. Once alone, she sank onto the narrow bed, finally allowing the tears she'd been holding back throughout her journey. She cried for James, for the comfortable life she'd left behind in Boston, and for the uncertain future that stretched before her in this harsh, unfamiliar land. Morning came too soon, the pale light filtering through thin curtains rousing Olivia from a restless sleep. She dressed in her most practical outfit, a navy skirt and white shirtwaist that already seemed too formal for this dusty town, and made her way downstairs. Over a breakfast of cornbread and bacon, Mrs. Peterson offered unsolicited advice. "If you're smart, you'll sell that ranch and head back east. No place for a woman alone out here." "I can't sell yet," Olivia replied. "I need to see it first. Understand what James built." "Suit yourself," the landlady said with a shrug. "But you'll need someone to take you out there." It's a good 10 miles outside town. As if summoned by their conversation, the door to the boarding house opened, and Sheriff Thomas Wilson stepped inside, removing his hat. He was a weathered man in his 50s, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Morning, ladies," he greeted them. "Miss Blackburn, I heard you'd arrived. Thought I might offer my services to escort you out to your brother's place today, if you're up for it." Olivia gratefully accepted, and an hour later found herself in the sheriff's wagon, bouncing along a rutted trail that wound through scrubby hills and stands of mesquite. The landscape was beautiful in its stark way, with distant purple mountains rising against a sky so intensely blue it hurt her eyes. "Your brother was well respected," Sheriff Wilson told her as they traveled. "Quiet man, but fair. Built that place up from nothing over 6 years." "Was he happy here?" Olivia asked, the question that had plagued her since learning of his death. The sheriff considered this. "I believe he was finding his way to it. Land's hard but honest. Gives back what you put in, eventually." As they crested a small rise, the Circle B came into view. A modest ranch house with a covered porch stood near a barn and corral. A windmill turned lazily in the breeze, and several cattle grazed in a nearby pasture. It wasn't grand, but it had a settled quality that suggested permanence. "It's lovely," Olivia whispered, surprised by the emotion swelling in her throat. "It's workable land," the sheriff agreed. "Your brother knew what he was doing. Had about 80 head of cattle and a few good horses. His foreman, Miguel Santos, has been keeping things going since James took ill." As they pulled into the yard, a man emerged from the barn, tall and lean, with dark hair and eyes that spoke of his Mexican heritage. He approached the wagon cautiously. "Miguel," the sheriff called out, "this is Miss Blackburn, James's sister." Miguel removed his hat, revealing a face etched with both grief and wariness. "Señorita, my condolences for your loss. Your brother was a good man and a fair employer." "Thank you for keeping things running," Olivia said, accepting his help down from the wagon. "It was my duty," Miguel replied simply. "Will you be selling?" The directness of the question caught Olivia off guard. I don't know yet. I need time to understand this place. To decide." Miguel nodded, though doubt was clear in his expression. "As you wish. There are 2 ranch hands who also stayed on Pablo and Diego. Good workers. I will introduce you." The tour of the property revealed a modest but well-maintained operation. The house itself was sparsely furnished but solid, with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a cast-iron stove, and a small sitting area with a stone fireplace. James's presence lingered in every corner, his books on a shelf, his spare boots by the door, his pipe on the mantel. By late afternoon, Olivia's head was spinning with information about cattle brands, water rights, and grazing rotations. Miguel had been patient but clearly skeptical of her ability to comprehend the complexities of ranching. "Most of the calving is done for the spring," he explained as they stood by the corral watching a mare and her foal. "We'll need to move the herd to the north pasture next week for better grazing." "I see," Olivia said, though in truth, she was overwhelmed. Miguel hesitated before speaking again. "Miss Blackburn, I must tell you something. Mr. Lawson from the Double L has made offers for this land before. Your brother always refused, but now—" He left the implication hanging. "Cole Lawson?" Olivia asked, remembering the hard-faced man from town. "See, he wants this land for the water rights. The creek that runs through your property is valuable, especially in dry years." Before Olivia could respond, the sound of approaching hoofbeats drew their attention. 3 riders appeared, coming fast toward the ranch house. Miguel stiffened beside her. "Speak of the devil," he muttered. The lead rider was unmistakably Cole Lawson, his imposing figure cutting a sharp silhouette against the afternoon sky. He reined his black stallion to a stop a few yards away, his eyes narrowing as they fell on Olivia. "Miss Blackburn," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "I heard you'd arrived. I'm Cole Lawson." "Mr. Lawson," Olivia acknowledged, lifting her chin slightly. Up close, she could see the details she'd missed in town, the faint scar that ran along his jawline, the crow's feet at the corners of his piercing gray eyes, the streaks of silver at his temples that belied his otherwise youthful appearance. "I'm sorry about your brother," he continued, though his tone carried little warmth. "He was a stubborn man, but I respected him." "Thank you," Olivia replied stiffly. "I'll be direct, Miss Blackburn. I'm prepared to offer you a fair price for this land. More than fair, considering the circumstances." "The circumstances?" Cole dismounted, handing his reins to one of his men. "A woman alone can't run a cattle ranch. Not in this territory. You'd be doing yourself a favor by selling now, before things get complicated." Anger flared in Olivia's chest. "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Lawson, but I haven't made any decisions about selling. My brother built this place from nothing. I won't be rushed into giving it away." A muscle ticked in Cole's jaw. "It wouldn't be giving it away. My offer would see you comfortably back to Boston with enough to start fresh." "How do you know I want to go back to Boston?" Olivia challenged. For a moment, something like surprise flickered across Cole's face. Then his expression hardened again. "Because women like you don't belong out here. The West breaks those who aren't prepared for its hardships." "Perhaps you shouldn't presume to know what kind of woman I am, Mr. Lawson," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Cole studied her for a long moment, his gaze so intense that Olivia had to force herself not to look away. Finally, he nodded curtly. "Fair enough, Miss Blackburn. Take your time to consider. But don't take too long. Some opportunities don't wait." With that cryptic warning, he turned back to his horse. "I'll call again next week. Perhaps by then, you'll have come to your senses." As quickly as they had arrived, the three riders departed, leaving a cloud of dust and tension behind them. Olivia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Miguel gave her an appraising look. "You stood your ground with him. Most don't." "Is he always so presumptuous?" "Always. But he is also powerful in these parts. The Double L has the largest herd in the county, and Mr. Lawson has connections in territorial politics." Miguel paused. "He is not a man to cross lightly." "I'm not looking to cross anyone," Olivia insisted. "I just need time to think, to decide what's best." Miguel nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "Time is something Mr. Lawson does not like to give. Be careful, Miss Blackburn." That night, after Sheriff Wilson had driven her back to town, Olivia lay awake in her boarding house room, replaying the confrontation with Cole Lawson in her mind. His arrogance was infuriating, yet she couldn't deny there was something compelling about him, a raw intensity that both frightened and fascinated her. "Stop it," she whispered to herself in the darkness. "You didn't come all this way to moon over some arrogant cowboy." But as sleep finally claimed her, it was Cole Lawson's piercing gray eyes that followed her into her dreams. The next week passed in a blur of activity as Olivia divided her time between settling James's affairs in town and learning about the ranch operations. She met with Mr. Hargrove, the bank manager, who confirmed that while the Circle B wasn't deeply in debt, it was operating on thin margins. "Your brother was just beginning to see a profit," Hargrove explained, peering at her over wire-rimmed spectacles. "Another year or two of good seasons, and he'd have been comfortably established." "And if I were to sell?" Olivia asked. "Lawson's offer is generous, I'll admit," the banker replied, "but less than what the property might be worth in a few years' time, especially with that water access." Olivia thanked him for his candor and stepped out onto the boardwalk, deep in thought. She nearly collided with Martha Wilkins, who was emerging from the general store with a basket of goods. "My goodness, child, you look positively haunted," the older woman exclaimed. "Come have some tea with me. Walter can mind the store for half an hour." Seated in the Wilkins' cozy living quarters behind the store, Olivia found herself pouring out her confusion. "Everyone seems to think I should sell to Mr. Lawson, yet they also hint that I'd be getting less than the land is worth." Martha poured tea from a chipped but pretty china pot. "Cole Lawson wants that land badly, has for years. Your brother refused him repeatedly." "But why is it so important to him?" Olivia pressed. Martha sighed. "That's a complicated tale, and tied up with history. The Lawson family has been in this territory since before it was American soil. Cole's grandfather established the Double L, and his father expanded it significantly. When Cole took over 10 years ago after his father's death, he vowed to make it the greatest ranch in the Arizona territory. Ambition doesn't explain his intensity," Olivia observed. "No, it doesn't," Martha agreed. "There's more to it. Cole was married once, years ago. His wife, Rebecca, was a gentle soul, not really suited to the hardships of ranch life. She died in childbirth, along with their infant son, during a terrible winter storm when they couldn't get the doctor in time." Martha's voice softened. "Some say Cole never forgave himself for bringing her out here, for not being able to save her. He's kept everyone at arm's length since then, focused only on building his empire." "That's tragic," Olivia murmured, trying to reconcile this new information with the hard-faced man she'd encountered. "Indeed, but it doesn't excuse his methods," Martha continued. "Cole Lawson gets what he wants, one way or another. And right now, he wants your land." "Because of the water?" "Partly, but I think it's also because your brother defied him. Cole doesn't take defiance well." Martha leaned forward. "Be careful, Olivia. I've known Cole since he was a boy, and there's goodness in him, buried deep. But he's dangerous when crossed." The warning stayed with Olivia as she returned to the Circle B the following day. She had decided to spend a few nights at the ranch to truly get a feel for the place and its rhythms. Miguel seemed surprised by this decision, but made up a room for her without comment. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Olivia sat on the porch, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the cooling air. The vastness of the landscape both intimidated and exhilarated her. In Boston, buildings and people had hemmed her in. Here, the very emptiness offered a different kind of freedom. "It gets under your skin," a voice said, startling her. Olivia turned to find Miguel standing a few feet away, a respectful distance that acknowledged the impropriety of their situation, a single woman and a man alone at nightfall. "The land," he clarified. "It becomes part of you." "I'm beginning to understand that," Olivia admitted. "It's so different from anything I've known." Miguel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Your brother felt the same way when he first arrived. He told me once that he came west to escape something, but stayed because he found something greater." "What was he escaping?" Olivia asked, realizing how little she truly knew about her brother's inner life. "That, he never said." Miguel gazed out at the darkening landscape. "But whatever demons chased him, I think he found peace here at the end." The thought comforted Olivia. She had worried that James had died alone and bitter, but perhaps he had found his place in this harsh, beautiful land. "Miguel," she said after a moment, "teach me everything. About the ranch, the cattle, everything I need to know to make an informed decision." Surprise flickered across his face. "You are considering staying?" "I'm considering all options," Olivia replied carefully, "but I can't make a wise choice without understanding what's at stake." Miguel studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Very well, Miss Blackburn. We begin at dawn tomorrow." True to his word, Miguel roused Olivia before sunrise. Dressed in her brother's old clothes trousers and a shirt that she'd altered hastily the night before, she joined him for a breakfast of strong coffee, beans and biscuits prepared by Diego, who seemed amused by her attire but made no comment. The day was grueling. Miguel took her on horseback across the property, explaining the grazing rotation, showing her where the natural springs fed the creek, pointing out boundaries and areas vulnerable to rustlers. By mid-morning, her thighs ached from the unfamiliar saddle, and by noon, she was certain she'd never sit comfortably again. "We can stop if you're too tired," Miguel offered as they paused atop a ridge overlooking the northern pasture. Olivia straightened in the saddle, ignoring the pain. "I'm fine. Please continue." A ghost of a smile touched Miguel's lips. "You are stubborn like your brother." The afternoon was spent learning the basics of cattle handling. Olivia discovered that while she was terrified of the massive longhorns, she had a good eye for spotting sick animals and a steady hand with the horses. Miguel's instructions were clear and patient, and by the time they returned to the ranch house at dusk, Olivia felt both exhausted and strangely exhilarated. "You did well," Miguel acknowledged as they unsaddled their horses. "Better than I expected." Coming from him, Olivia knew it was high praise indeed. The next 3 days followed a similar pattern: dawn to dusk education in ranching, with evenings spent poring over James's ledgers and learning the business side of operations. Olivia's city soft hands developed blisters, then calluses. Her fair skin burned, then bronzed slightly. Muscles she hadn't known existed screamed in protest each morning, then gradually strengthened. On the fourth day, as they rode along the boundary that separated the Circle B from the Double L, they encountered a section of fence that had been cut, with several Circle B cattle having wandered onto Lawson land. Miguel's expression darkened. "This is deliberate." "Surely it could just be damaged from weather or animals," Olivia suggested, though the clean cuts in the wire told a different story. Miguel shook his head. "This has happened before, always along this boundary. Your brother had many arguments with Mr. Lawson about it." "Are you suggesting Mr. Lawson is cutting his own fence to steal our cattle?" The idea seemed absurd. "Not to steal," Miguel clarified. "To cause trouble. To make running this ranch more difficult. To persuade you to sell." Anger flared in Olivia's chest. That's unconscionable." "That is business in the West," Miguel replied grimly. "We should retrieve the cattle before Lawson's men claim them as strays." They spent the next hour carefully herding the wayward animals back through the damaged fence, then making temporary repairs. Olivia worked alongside Miguel, her hands soon scratched and dirty from handling the barbed wire, but her determination never wavering. As they finished, the sound of approaching horses drew their attention. Cole Lawson appeared with 4 of his men, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene. "Trespassing, Miss Blackburn?" he called out, reining his horse to a stop a few yards away. "Retrieving my cattle after someone conveniently cut my fence," Olivia replied, rising to her full height despite her disheveled appearance. Cole's gaze swept over her, taking in the men's clothing, the smudges of dirt on her face, the determined set of her jaw. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. "Damaged fences are common out here," he said dismissively. "Wind, wildlife. No need to jump to accusations." "This was cut," Olivia insisted, pointing to the clean edges of the wire. "And according to Miguel, it's happened repeatedly along this boundary." Cole dismounted, moving closer to examine the fence. His proximity made Olivia acutely aware of her unkempt state, but she refused to back down. "Perhaps your foreman is mistaken," Cole suggested, his voice dangerously soft. "Or perhaps he has reasons of his own to turn you against me." Miguel stiffened but remained silent, his hand drifting subtly toward the knife at his belt. "I trust Miguel's word," Olivia stated firmly. "And I can see the evidence with my own eyes." Cole studied her for a long moment, then unexpectedly smiled a brief, hard quirk of his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "You're not what I expected, Miss Blackburn." "I'm learning that's something of an advantage out here, Mr. Lawson." A genuine chuckle escaped him, surprising both of them. "Indeed it is." He stepped back, the brief moment of warmth fading as quickly as it had appeared. "My offer still stands. In fact, I'm prepared to increase it by 10%, given your determination." "I haven't decided to sell," Olivia reminded him. "But you will," Cole replied, confidence edging his tone. "This life isn't for a woman raised in Eastern comfort. Playing cowgirl for a few days doesn't change that reality." The dismissive words stung, but Olivia kept her expression neutral. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Lawson, but I'll make my own decisions about what kind of life suits me." Something dangerous flashed in Cole's eyes. "Stubbornness can be costly out here, Miss Blackburn. This territory doesn't forgive mistakes." "Is that a threat, Mr. Lawson?" "A statement of fact," he replied coolly. "Think about my offer. I won't extend it indefinitely." With that, he remounted his horse and signaled his men to follow, leaving Olivia and Miguel standing by the repaired fence. Only when the riders were well away did Olivia release the breath she'd been holding. "He is not accustomed to being refused," Miguel observed. "Well, he'd better become accustomed to it," Olivia replied, though her bravado couldn't quite mask the tremor in her voice. "Because I'm not selling. Not yet. Anyway." Miguel gave her an appraising look. "Then we have much more work to do, Miss Blackburn, and little time to do it." The following week brought new challenges. Word spread quickly through the small ranching community that James Blackburn's eastern sister was attempting to run the Circle B herself. Opinions were divided. Some admired her spirit, while others scoffed at the notion of a woman taking on such a role. Mrs. Peterson made her feelings clear when Olivia returned to the boarding house to collect the remainder of her belongings, having decided to live permanently at the ranch. "It isn't proper, a young unmarried woman living out there with ranch hands," the landlady scolded. "People will talk." "People already talk," Olivia replied calmly. "But I can't run a ranch from town." "You shouldn't be running a ranch at all," Mrs. Peterson exclaimed. "It's not natural. A woman needs a husband, children to care for, not cattle and cowboys." Olivia bit back a sharp retort, reminding herself that Mrs. Peterson's views were typical of the time and place. "I appreciate your concern," she said instead, "but my mind is made up." Later, as she loaded her trunk onto Miguel's wagon, Martha Wilkins approached with a small package. "Some preserves and fresh bread," the older woman explained, "and seeds for a kitchen garden when you're ready. Every home needs growing things." Touched by the gesture, Olivia accepted the gift. "Thank you. For everything." Martha patted her hand. "You're causing quite a stir, my dear. Cole Lawson was in the store yesterday, asking all manner of questions about you." Olivia's pulse quickened. "What sort of questions?" "Your background, your character, whether you were engaged or had prospects back east." Martha's eyes twinkled. "I do believe you've piqued his interest." "More likely he's looking for weaknesses to exploit," Olivia replied dryly. "Perhaps," Martha conceded, "but Cole's always been more complex than people give him credit for." She squeezed Olivia's hand. "Just be careful. Hearts can be even more dangerous territory than land disputes." With that enigmatic warning, Martha returned to her store, leaving Olivia to ponder her words all the way back to the Circle B. Life at the ranch quickly fell into a rhythm. Olivia rose before dawn each day, working alongside Miguel, Pablo, and Diego. She learned to ride better, to recognize the signs of approaching weather, to treat minor injuries in both animals and humans. The ledgers began to make sense to her, revealing the precarious but potentially profitable nature of James's operation. 2 weeks after her confrontation with Cole Lawson at the fence line, disaster struck. A summer thunderstorm rolled in from the mountains, bringing not just rain but hail the size of hens' eggs. The cattle panicked, breaking through fences and scattering across the range. Lightning struck the barn, setting it ablaze despite the downpour. Through the night, Olivia worked with her men to save what they could, moving horses to safety, fighting the fire, searching for scattered cattle in the lightning-illuminated darkness. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving destruction in its wake. The barn was a charred skeleton. At least 20 head of cattle were missing, and everyone was exhausted and soaked to the bone. "We will rebuild," Miguel assured her as they surveyed the damage in the gray morning light. "But it will take time and money." Money they didn't have, Olivia knew. The meager cash reserves James had left would barely cover their immediate needs, let alone rebuilding. "We'll find a way," she said with more confidence than she felt. Word of the Circle B's misfortune spread quickly. By mid-morning, several neighboring ranchers arrived with offers of help: lumber, labor, spare tools. Olivia was moved by their generosity, especially when she learned that such cooperation was common in their harsh environment. "Out here, we survive by helping each other," explained Silas Jenkins, an elderly rancher whose small spread bordered the Circle B to the east. "Your brother did the same for me when I broke my leg last winter. Sent his boys over to help with my stock for a month." The gesture of community support bolstered Olivia's resolve. By sunset, the cleanup was well underway, and plans for a new, sturdier barn were taking shape. Exhausted but determined, Olivia finally retired to the house, washing away the day's grime and smoke in a basin of heated water. She was just settling onto the porch with a cup of coffee when hoofbeats announced a late visitor. To her surprise, Cole Lawson rode into the yard alone, his expression unreadable as he dismounted and approached the house. "Mr. Lawson," Olivia acknowledged, too tired to summon her usual defenses. "Miss Blackburn." He removed his hat, revealing hair damp with sweat. "I heard about the fire." News travels fast. It does when it affects the welfare of the community. He gestured to the devastation visible in the twilight. "You were fortunate no one was hurt." "Yes, we were." Olivia studied him, trying to discern his purpose. "What brings you here, Mr. Lawson? Another offer to buy my misfortune?" A muscle ticked in his jaw. "I came to offer assistance, actually. I have lumber from a project we've just completed, and men who could help with rebuilding." The offer caught Olivia off guard. "That's unexpectedly generous of you." "Contrary to what you might believe, Miss Blackburn, I'm not a monster," Cole replied, a hint of weariness in his tone. "We may have our differences, but I wouldn't see anyone struggle after such misfortune." Olivia hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. "What would you want in return?" Something like disappointment flickered across Cole's features. "Not everything comes with conditions, Miss Blackburn." Shame colored Olivia's cheeks. "I apologize for the assumption. It's been a trying day." Cole nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I understand. My offer stands, regardless." "Then I accept, with gratitude," Olivia said. "The help would be most welcome." An awkward silence fell between them, broken only by the distant lowing of cattle and the chirping of nighttime insects. Cole shifted his weight, suddenly appearing less sure of himself than Olivia had ever seen him. "You've impressed many people," he said finally, "taking on this ranch, not running at the first sign of trouble." "Including you?" Olivia couldn't resist asking. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I reserve judgment, but I will say you've lasted longer than I expected." "I'll take that as a compliment, backhanded though it may be." This time, his smile was genuine, transforming his face and giving Olivia a glimpse of the man he might have been before grief hardened him. It was meant as one. Another silence, less awkward than the first. Cole cleared his throat. I should go. My men will be here at first light to help with the cleanup and rebuilding. Thank you, Olivia said sincerely. He nodded, replacing his hat. As he turned to leave, Olivia acted on impulse. Mr. Lawson, she called after him, would you care for some coffee before you ride back? It's a long way to the Double L. Cole paused, clearly surprised by the invitation. For a moment, Olivia thought he might refuse. Then, slowly, he turned back. Coffee would be welcome, he said quietly. Olivia poured him a cup from the pot she'd brought outside, then resumed her seat on the porch step. After a moment's hesitation, Cole joined her, maintaining a respectable distance. They sat in silence for a time, watching the stars emerge in the vast sky overhead. Olivia was acutely aware of his presence beside her, the subtle scent of leather and horses, the controlled power in his large frame. Why did you really come west? Cole asked suddenly. It wasn't just for your brother's property. Olivia considered deflecting but found herself answering honestly. I was engaged to be married in Boston. A suitable match, everyone said. But I discovered my fiancé was involved with another woman. Had been for years. She stared into her coffee cup. When I confronted him, he had the audacity to suggest we marry anyway, that such arrangements were common in our social circle. And you refused, Cole surmised. I threw his ring in the harbor, Olivia confirmed, a hint of pride in her voice. The scandal was considerable. When James's letter came about his illness, it seemed like Providence a chance to escape, to start fresh where no one knew my humiliation. But you arrived too late. Yes. Grief tinged her voice. Too late to say goodbye, to make amends for the years of distance between us. Cole was quiet for a moment. Your brother spoke of you often. He was proud of your independence, your education. Surprised, Olivia turned to him. You knew James well? Not well, Cole admitted, but we had dealings over the years. Business doesn't always make for friendly relations, but there was respect. He paused. He mentioned once that he regretted not being a better brother to you after your parents died. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. I wish I'd known that. I think he would have told you, had there been time. The simple comfort in those words touched Olivia deeply. They sat in companionable silence until Cole finished his coffee and rose to leave. Thank you, he said, handing her the empty cup, for the coffee and the company. And thank you for the help, Olivia replied. It means more than I can express. Their eyes met in the dim light from the house windows, and something shifted between them. A recognition, perhaps, of shared loneliness and unspoken pain. For a breathless moment, Olivia thought Cole might say more, might reach out to her. Instead, he nodded once, then turned and walked to his horse. Olivia watched him ride away, his silhouette gradually fading into the darkness, and wondered why her heart felt both lighter and heavier than before. True to his word, Cole sent 6 men and 2 wagons loaded with lumber the next morning. They worked efficiently alongside Miguel and the others, clearing debris and beginning the framework for a new barn. Cole himself arrived mid-morning, rolling up his sleeves to help with the heavy lifting without fanfare or special treatment. Olivia divided her time between supervising the rebuilding and joining search parties for the missing cattle. By the 3rd day, most of the herd had been recovered, though 5 head remained unaccounted for, a significant loss for the small operation. On the 4th day, as the barn's frame took shape against the clear blue sky, Cole approached Olivia as she sorted through salvaged tools. 5 of your missing cattle turned up on Double L land this morning, he informed her. My men are bringing them over now. Relief washed over Olivia. That's wonderful news. Thank you for returning them. They're your property, Cole replied with a shrug. Though I should warn you that your east fence line needs significant repair. That's likely where they broke through during the storm. Olivia nodded, mentally calculating the additional work and materials needed. I'll have Miguel look at it tomorrow. My men can handle it, Cole offered. They're already working on the north boundary. It's no trouble to extend the repairs. That's very generous, Olivia said, studying him. But I have to ask, why are you being so helpful? It can't simply be neighborly goodwill, not after our previous interactions. Cole's expression remained unreadable. Perhaps I've reconsidered my approach. Meaning? Meaning that forcing you to sell clearly isn't working, he admitted with unexpected candor. You're more determined than I anticipated. So this is… what? A new strategy to acquire my land? Irritation flashed across Cole's face. Is it so difficult to believe I might simply be doing the decent thing? Given our history, yes, Olivia replied honestly. Cole exhaled slowly, visibly reining in his temper. Fair enough. But people can change their minds, Miss Blackburn, even stubborn ranchers like myself. Before Olivia could respond, Miguel approached with news of a complication with the barn's support beams, drawing her attention away. By the time she looked back, Cole had rejoined his men at the construction site. Throughout the day, Olivia found her gaze continually drawn to him as he worked. There was something compelling about seeing this powerful man engaged in manual labor, the competent way he handled tools, the easy authority with which he directed both his own men and hers, the occasional smile that transformed his normally stern features during moments of camaraderie with the workers. In the late afternoon, a dispute arose between Pablo and one of Cole's men over the proper method for securing a crossbeam. Tempers flared in the heat, and the argument threatened to escalate until Cole stepped between them. Both methods work, he stated calmly. Pablo's is better suited to the materials we have. We'll do it his way. The simple acknowledgement of her workers' expertise surprised Olivia, and clearly surprised Pablo as well, whose chest puffed with pride as he returned to his task. Later, as work concluded for the day and Cole prepared to lead his men back to the Double L, Olivia approached him. Thank you, she said, for intervening with Pablo, and for everything else. Cole nodded, wiping his hands on a bandana. Your man knows his craft. Pride shouldn't get in the way of good work. A philosophy that could apply to many situations, Olivia observed pointedly. A hint of a smile touched Cole's lips. I deserve that. Perhaps we both do, Olivia admitted. I haven't always been gracious about accepting help. Independence is a trait valued in the West, Cole replied. But so is knowing when to rely on others. Their eyes met, and that strange tension returned something unspoken hovering between them, neither fully comfortable nor entirely unwelcome. Will you join us for supper? Olivia asked impulsively. Diego has prepared enough for everyone. Your men are welcome too, of course. Cole hesitated, clearly surprised by the invitation. Thank you, but we should return. There's work waiting at the Double L. Disappointment flickered through Olivia, though she quickly masked it. Of course. Another time, perhaps. Perhaps. Cole tipped his hat and turned to go, then paused. The barn should be complete within 2 days. After that, I'd like to show you something on my property, if you're willing. Curiosity piqued. Olivia nodded. I'd be interested to see the famous Double L. It's not the ranch itself I want you to see, Cole clarified, but something that might help you understand certain matters. The cryptic statement left Olivia intrigued as she watched him ride away with his men. What could he possibly want to show her? And why did the prospect of spending time with him alone both alarm and excite her? 2 days later, the new barn stood complete, larger and sturdier than the original, with improved ventilation and additional stalls for the horses. A small celebration ensued, with Diego preparing a feast of beans, cornbread, and a young steer butchered for the occasion. Cole and his men joined in. The boundaries between the two ranches temporarily dissolved in the spirit of accomplishment. As the workers ate and shared stories around a bonfire, Cole approached Olivia where she stood slightly apart, watching the festivities. It's good to see them enjoying themselves, she observed. They've worked so hard. Cole nodded. A crew that works well together deserves to celebrate together. He paused. If you're still interested, I'd like to show you that place I mentioned tomorrow morning. I am, Olivia confirmed. Should I meet you at the boundary line? I'll come here, Cole replied. Around sunrise, if that's not too early. Sunrise is fine, Olivia said, curious about what seemed like uncharacteristic consideration from him. The next morning dawned clear and cool, with a hint of autumn in the air despite the summer heat that would return by midday. Olivia dressed carefully in her most practical riding clothes, the men's trousers and shirt she'd altered, with a wide-brimmed hat to protect her face from the sun. She was waiting on the porch, sipping coffee, when Cole rode into the yard precisely as the sun crested the eastern hills. Good morning, he greeted her, dismounting. Today he wore a simple blue shirt and denim trousers rather than his usual black attire, giving him a less intimidating appearance. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Not at all, Olivia replied, setting aside her cup. I'll saddle my horse. Already done, Cole said, gesturing to where her mare waited, saddled and ready beside his stallion. Miguel was up early. He seems concerned about you riding out with me. A smile tugged at Olivia's lips. Miguel is protective. With good reason, perhaps, Cole acknowledged, helping her mount with a deference that surprised her. I haven't given him or you much reason to trust me. The candid admission caught Olivia off guard. Yet here I am, preparing to ride into unknown territory with you. Not entirely unknown, Cole assured her as he swung into his saddle. And I give you my word as a gentleman that you'll return safely. They rode in companionable silence for nearly an hour, following the creek that originated on Circle B land and flowed through the Double L property. The landscape gradually changed from the scrubby pasture land of Olivia's ranch to more lush terrain, with stands of cottonwood trees and thicker vegetation along the widening creek. It's beautiful, Olivia remarked as they entered a small valley sheltered by rocky outcroppings. I had no idea this was here. Few people do, Cole replied. It's one of the hidden treasures of the Double L. He pointed ahead. There's what I wanted to show you. As they rounded a bend in the creek, a small cabin came into view, nestled among the trees with a carefully tended garden alongside it. Smoke rose from the chimney, indicating occupancy. Who lives here? Olivia asked as they approached. Sarah Johnson, Cole answered, and about 20 orphaned children. Surprise rendered Olivia momentarily speechless. Before she could formulate a response, the cabin door opened, and a tall, gray-haired woman emerged, followed by several curious children of various ages. Mr. Lawson, one of the smaller boys called out, waving excitedly. Cole's expression softened as he dismounted and lifted the child into his arms with practiced ease. Hello, Danny. Have you been helping Miss Sarah with the chores? Yes, sir. I collect the eggs all by myself now. That's excellent progress, Cole praised, setting the boy down and greeting the other children who had gathered around him with obvious affection. Olivia watched in astonishment as the supposedly hard-hearted rancher interacted with each child individually, remembering names and asking about specific tasks or accomplishments. This was a side of Cole Lawson she would never have imagined existed. The older woman approached, extending a hand to Olivia. You must be Miss Blackburn. I'm Sarah Johnson. Welcome to Hope Creek Home. Thank you, Olivia replied, accepting the handshake. I had no idea this place existed. Few do, Sarah confirmed with a smile, and that's by design. Many of these children come from difficult circumstances. Here, they can heal and grow without judgment or interference. As Sarah led them on a tour of the small compound, Olivia learned that Hope Creek Home had been established 5 years earlier to care for orphaned children from throughout the territory. Some had lost parents to illness or accident, others to violence or abandonment. The home provided not just shelter but education, practical skills training, and eventually placement with adoptive families when possible. "And Mr. Lawson supports this?" Olivia asked Sarah quietly as they watched Cole demonstrating proper fishing technique to several eager boys at the creek. "Supports it?" Sarah repeated with a surprised laugh. "My dear, Cole founded it. This is his land, his cabin originally. He built the additions, brings supplies monthly, and personally oversees each child's progress." She lowered her voice. "Don't let his reputation fool you. There's more to that man than most people ever see." Throughout the day, Olivia observed Cole with new eyes. He helped the older boys repair a fence, listened patiently to a young girl's reading lesson, and inspected the garden with serious attention to the children's explanations of what they'd planted. At lunch, he sat among them, eating the simple stew and cornbread with apparent enjoyment while gently correcting manners and encouraging conversation. In the afternoon, while the children napped or engaged in quiet activities, Cole led Olivia to a small ridge overlooking the property. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked finally. "Why show me this?" Cole gazed out over the peaceful scene below. "Because I wanted you to understand what's at stake." "I don't follow." He turned to face her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. "The creek that runs through your property is the lifeblood of this valley. In dry years, it's the only reliable water source for miles. Without it, this place," he gestured toward the orphanage, "couldn't exist." Understanding dawned. "So your interest in my land is partly about securing the water rights?" "Yes," Cole acknowledged. "But not for the reasons you might think, not just for profit or expansion." "Why didn't you simply tell me about this?" Olivia asked. "Instead of, well, all the pressure tactics." Cole's jaw tightened. "Pride, stubbornness, and protection. The fewer people who know about Hope Creek, the safer these children are. Some have relatives who would do them harm if they could be found." "You don't trust easily," Olivia observed. "No," Cole admitted. "I don't. Yet you've trusted me with this." His gaze held hers steadily. "I'm beginning to think you might be worthy of that trust, Olivia Blackburn." The use of her first name sent an unexpected warmth through her. "I'm honored by that assessment, Cole." A smile ghosted across his lips at her reciprocal informality. "Does this change your perspective on selling the Circle B?" Olivia considered carefully before answering. "It certainly gives me more to think about, but I hope you understand that I can't simply abandon what my brother built, what I've come to care about myself." Cole nodded, disappointment evident in his expression, but also a reluctant respect. "I understand. I wouldn't expect less from you, given what I've seen of your character." "Perhaps there's a compromise to be found," Olivia suggested. "A way to secure water access for Hope Creek without my giving up the Circle B entirely." Hope flickered in Cole's eyes. "You'd be open to discussing such an arrangement?" "I would," Olivia confirmed. "The children's welfare matters to me too, now that I know about them." Relief visibly washed over him. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, the atmosphere between them charged with new understanding and possibility. Cole cleared his throat. "We should head back soon. I promised Sarah I'd fix that loose shutter before we left." As they descended the ridge, Olivia found herself studying Cole with new interest. The man who had seemed so intimidating and cold now appeared in a different light, still formidable, but with depths of compassion she hadn't imagined possible. Later, as they prepared to depart after a full day at Hope Creek, the children gathered to say goodbye, several of them hugging Cole with obvious affection. Sarah pulled Olivia aside for a moment. He's a good man. Beneath all that gruffness, the older woman said quietly. Life has taught him to guard himself, but there's a tender heart under that stern exterior. I'm beginning to see that, Olivia admitted. Sarah's knowing smile suggested she saw more than Olivia had intended to reveal. Good. He deserves someone who sees beyond the reputation. The ride back to the Circle B was quieter than their morning journey, both of them absorbed in their own thoughts. As the ranch came into view in the golden light of late afternoon, Cole broke the silence. Thank you for coming today, for being willing to see. Thank you for showing me, Olivia replied sincerely. It changes things? Cole nodded, his expression thoughtful. Would you be amenable to meeting again soon, to discuss those compromise possibilities you mentioned? I would, Olivia said. Perhaps dinner at the Circle B? I believe I owe you a meal, after declining so many invitations. A genuine smile transformed Cole's features. I'd like that. As they rode into the yard, Miguel emerged from the barn, his expression carefully neutral as he noted their arrival together. Cole dismounted first, then helped Olivia down with hands that lingered perhaps a moment longer than necessary on her waist. Until next time, Olivia, he said softly, tipping his hat before mounting his stallion and riding away. Olivia watched him go, aware of Miguel's curious gaze upon her. He showed you the orphanage, Miguel stated rather than asked. Surprised, Olivia turned to him. You knew about it? Miguel nodded. Your brother knew as well. It was one reason he refused to sell, though Lawson never realized that. James wanted to ensure the children's water supply too, but on his own terms. Why didn't you tell me? It wasn't my secret to share, Miguel replied simply. And I believed you needed to form your own opinions of Lawson without influence. Olivia considered this as they walked toward the house. He's more complex than I realized. Most people are, Miguel observed. But few have such contradictory public and private faces as Cole Lawson. Over the next few weeks, Olivia's relationship with Cole underwent a transformation. What began as formal discussions about water rights and boundary agreements gradually evolved into longer conversations over shared meals, where they discovered mutual interests in literature, astronomy, and the natural world. Cole began to call at the Circle B regularly, sometimes on the pretext of business, other times openly seeking Olivia's company. They rode the boundaries together, comparing management techniques and sharing ideas for improvements. Occasionally, they visited Hope Creek Home together, where Olivia developed her own relationships with Sarah and the children. The townsfolk of Redemption Springs noticed the change. Whispers and speculation followed Olivia when she ventured into town for supplies. Martha Wilkins, ever the source of local insight, pulled her aside one day as she selected fabric at the general store. People are talking, Martha informed her with undisguised interest, about you and Cole Lawson. People always talk, Olivia replied, focusing on comparing two bolts of calico. They're saying he's changed, mellowed, that you've accomplished what no one thought possible. You've softened the hardest heart in the territory. Olivia set down the fabric, meeting Martha's gaze directly. Cole isn't what his reputation suggests. There's more to him than most people have bothered to see. I believe it, Martha said gently. I've known him since he was a boy, remember? I saw him before grief carved him into that stern figure. I'm glad someone else can see it too. On her way out of town that afternoon, Olivia encountered Sheriff Wilson outside the bank. Miss Blackburn, he greeted her, tipping his hat. Heading back to the Circle B? Yes, Sheriff. I have supplies to deliver before dark. He nodded, falling into step beside her wagon. I've been meaning to speak with you, about Cole Lawson. Olivia suppressed a sigh. It seems everyone has an opinion on that subject. Just some friendly advice, the sheriff clarified. Cole's a powerful man in these parts. Influential. But he's also carried his share of burdens. More than his share, some might say. I'm aware of his past, Olivia said carefully. Are you? The sheriff's gaze was assessing. Did he tell you about the vendetta? About what happened with his father and James's previous foreman? Confusion furrowed Olivia's brow. No. What vendetta? Sheriff Wilson grimaced. Probably not my place to say then, but you might want to ask him about it. About why the boundary between your properties has been such a point of contention for so long. It goes deeper than water rights. The sheriff's cryptic warning lingered in Olivia's mind as she drove back to the Circle B. That evening, as she reviewed the ranch ledgers, she discovered a folder of correspondence she hadn't previously examined, letters between James and various territorial officials regarding boundary disputes with the Double L, dating back several years. One letter in particular caught her attention, a formal complaint from James about harassment of his workers, specifically naming Jerome Santos, Miguel's older brother and the Circle B's previous foreman, as the victim of repeated threats from the Lawson ranch. Troubled by the discovery, Olivia sought out Miguel the next morning as he worked with the horses in the corral. Miguel, she began carefully, I found some letters in James's files. About your brother. Miguel's hand stilled on the bridle he was repairing. Jerome. Yes. The letters suggested there was trouble between him and the Lawsons. Serious trouble. Miguel was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sighed. It is an old story, but perhaps one you should know. Over the next hour, as they sat on the corral fence watching the horses, Miguel revealed the history that Sheriff Wilson had hinted at. Jerome Santos had worked for the previous owner of what became the Circle B. When Cole's father, Vincent Lawson, attempted to pressure that owner into selling, Jerome had stood firm against the intimidation tactics. The dispute became personal, Miguel explained. Vincent Lawson was not a man who accepted defiance, especially from a Mexican. There were incidents, threats. Then Jerome was found badly beaten one night near the boundary line. He survived, but was never the same. And Cole? Olivia asked, heart pounding. Was he involved? He was younger then, working under his father's shadow, Miguel replied carefully. Some said he participated in the harassment. Others said he tried to moderate his father's methods. The truth? He shrugged. Only Cole knows for certain. What happened to Jerome? He left the territory after your brother bought this land, went to California. We exchanged letters occasionally. Miguel's gaze was direct. Your brother knew this history. It was one reason he refused to sell to Lawson, even when the offers became generous. Why didn't you tell me this before? Miguel's expression remained calm. Because I wanted you to form your own judgments, and because I believed people can change. Even Cole Lawson. Do you still believe that? Olivia asked quietly. I have seen evidence of it, Miguel admitted. The way he looks at you, the way he speaks to the workers now. But old wounds heal slowly, Miss Blackburn. And some never heal at all. That evening, Cole arrived at the Circle B as planned for their now regular Friday supper. Olivia had prepared a meal herself, a simple affair of roast chicken, potatoes, and fresh bread that represented the limits of her improving cooking skills. But as they sat across from each other at the small table, the easy companionship of recent weeks was marred by the weight of unspoken questions. Something's troubling you, Cole observed after their conversation had faltered for the third time. Olivia set down her fork, meeting his gaze directly. I learned something today about the history between the Double L and the Circle B, about Jerome Santos. Cole went very still, his expression shuddering closed. I see. I'd like to hear your perspective, Olivia said carefully, before I form judgments. For a long moment, Cole remained silent, tension evident in the rigid set of his shoulders. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled. My father was a hard man, ambitious, determined to build an empire, regardless of who stood in his way. He stared into his coffee cup. I was raised to follow in his footsteps, to view any opposition as a threat to be eliminated. And Jerome Santos was opposition. Cole nodded grimly. He was loyal to his employer, unwilling to be intimidated. My father saw that as an affront, especially coming from— He hesitated. A Mexican, Olivia finished quietly. Yes. Shame colored Cole's admission. I was young, eager to prove myself to my father. I participated in some of the harassment, fence cutting, cattle driving, threatening gestures. But I drew the line at physical violence. Yet Jerome was beaten. Cole's gaze lifted to meet hers, unflinching despite the pain evident in his eyes. Not by my hand, but by men acting under my father's orders, while I stood by and did nothing, which makes me no less responsible. The honesty of his confession hung between them in the quiet room. After that night, I confronted my father, Cole continued. It was the first time I'd ever openly defied him. He was displeased. Our relationship was strained until his death 2 years later. And the vendetta against the Circle B continued, even after you took over, Olivia observed. Old habits, Cole acknowledged with a grimace. And pride. I told myself it was about the water rights, about consolidating the territory. But part of me was still trying to fulfill my father's vision, to prove I could succeed where he had failed. Until the orphanage changed your perspective. A ghost of a smile touched Cole's lips. That was the beginning. Rebecca's death had already shaken my foundations. She used to challenge my father's methods, my adherence to his philosophy. After losing her and our son, I buried myself in work, in expansion. But establishing Hope Creek gave me a different purpose. And yet, you continue to pressure my brother to sell. I compartmentalized, Cole admitted, convinced myself the two matters were separate. It wasn't until you arrived until I saw the ranch through your eyes, saw myself through your eyes that I began to recognize the contradiction. Olivia studied him, searching for deception and finding only painful honesty. Thank you for telling me the truth. Does it change things between us? Cole asked, vulnerability evident in the question despite his effort to sound detached. I don't know yet, Olivia answered truthfully. I need time to think. Cole nodded, rising from the table. I understand. For what it's worth, I regret my role in that history. I can't change the past, but I've tried to become a different man than the one my father raised. As he prepared to leave, Olivia walked him to the door. On the porch, Cole turned to her, his expression solemn in the lamplight. Whatever you decide about us, the offer for water rights negotiation stands. The children shouldn't suffer for old sins. I agree, Olivia said softly. Good night, Cole. She watched him ride away into the darkness, her heart conflicted. The man she had come to care for, perhaps even love, carried a troubling past. Yet hadn't she witnessed his capacity for change, for compassion? Didn't everyone deserve the chance to become more than their worst mistakes? Sleep eluded Olivia that night as she wrestled with these questions. By dawn, she had reached no clear conclusion, but knew that answers wouldn't come from further isolation. After breakfast, she saddled her horse and rode to Hope Creek home, needing to see for herself the evidence of Cole's transformation. Sarah welcomed her with surprise but without question, inviting her to join the morning lessons. Olivia spent the day observing and participating reading with the younger children, helping the older ones with mathematics, assisting in the garden. Throughout the day, she listened to the children's stories about Mr. Cole and his regular involvement in their lives. He taught me to read, confided 8-year-old Emma, a shy girl who had arrived at the home 2 years earlier after her parents died of influenza. Comes every Saturday afternoon, no matter the weather. He helped me not be scared of horses, added Danny, the small boy who had greeted them on Olivia's first visit. Said being brave isn't about not having fear, but about doing what's right even when you're afraid. By late afternoon, as Olivia prepared to depart, Sarah walked her to her horse. "You've been unusually quiet today," the older woman observed. "Troubled about something?" Olivia hesitated, then shared the basics of what she had learned about the past conflict between the ranches. Sarah listened without interruption, her weathered face thoughtful. "I wondered when that history would surface," she said when Olivia finished. "Cole has mentioned it to me. It weighs on him still." "How can I reconcile the man who stood by during such cruelty with the man I've come to know?" Olivia asked. Sarah considered this carefully. "By recognizing that they are the same man, one who made grievous errors and has spent years attempting to atone for them. Not through grand gestures, but through daily choices to be better than he was taught to be." She patted Olivia's hand. "The measure of a person isn't in never falling, my dear, but in how they rise afterward." As Olivia rode back toward the Circle B, the setting sun painting the landscape in gold and amber, she reflected on Sarah's words. People could change. She herself had changed dramatically since arriving in the territory. The prim Boston schoolteacher had become a capable rancher, willing to face challenges that would have terrified her former self. Why, then, was it so difficult to accept that Cole might have undergone an even more profound transformation? Her contemplation was interrupted by the sight of riders approaching from the direction of town, 3 men she didn't recognize, moving with purposeful speed toward the Circle B. Unease prickled along Olivia's spine as she urged her horse to a faster pace. She arrived at the ranch to find Miguel confronting the strangers in the yard, his stance wary, one hand resting near his holstered gun. "Miss Blackburn," he acknowledged as she dismounted. "These men claim to represent the Territorial Land Office. They have concerns about your deed." The leader of the group, a thin man with a pinched expression and expensive Eastern clothing, stepped forward. "Miss Blackburn, I presume? I'm Harold Whitmore, legal representative for the Arizona Territorial Land Commission." His smile didn't reach his cold eyes. "There appears to be a discrepancy in your brother's land claim that requires immediate attention." "What sort of discrepancy?" Olivia asked, instantly suspicious. "The original survey parameters appear to have been misinterpreted. Our recent review suggests that a significant portion of what you consider Circle B property, specifically the northern section containing the creek headwaters, may in fact be public land." Miguel moved closer to Olivia. "This is the first we have heard of such concerns, and the Circle B deed has been established for years." Whitmore's smile thinned further. "Errors can persist for quite some time before discovery, unfortunately. We'll need to conduct a new survey immediately. In the meantime, all water rights claims are suspended pending resolution." The implications were clear. Without water rights, the Circle B's value would plummet, and the ranch would become untenable, especially with winter approaching. "This is highly irregular," Olivia stated, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I'll need to consult with legal representation before allowing any new survey." "Of course," Whitmore replied smoothly. "However, the suspension of water rights takes effect immediately. Any diversion of water from the creek for agricultural purposes will constitute trespass on territorial lands." After delivering this devastating news, the men departed, leaving Olivia and Miguel standing in stunned silence. "This is no coincidence," Miguel said finally. "Someone has influenced the Land Commission." "Cole," Olivia whispered, a cold weight settling in her stomach. "It must be. After our conversation last night, after I discovered the history—" "Perhaps," Miguel acknowledged, "but it seems unlike his recent behavior. And such matters take time to arrange, longer than one day." Despite Miguel's reasonable point, hurt and betrayal burned through Olivia. Had Cole's apparent transformation been merely an elaborate ruse to gain her trust? Was this his new strategy after direct pressure had failed, using territorial officials to force her hand? I need to go into town, Olivia decided, to speak with Sheriff Wilson and find legal counsel. I will accompany you, Miguel said firmly. First light tomorrow would be wiser than traveling now, with darkness approaching. Olivia agreed reluctantly, though sleep proved elusive again that night. By dawn, she was dressed and ready, determination having replaced the initial shock of Whitmore's visit. In town, Sheriff Wilson listened to their account with growing concern. This smells rotten, he concluded. Whitmore isn't from around here, must be brought in from Phoenix or Tucson. I'll telegraph the territorial governor's office, see what I can learn about these supposed discrepancies. The town's only lawyer, Everett Hammond, was less encouraging. Land disputes with the territory are complex and often favor the government, he warned after reviewing James's deed. And if influential parties are involved, the process can become politically complicated. Are you suggesting I can't fight this? Olivia asked, frustration evident in her tone. Hammond adjusted his spectacles nervously. I'm suggesting that such battles require substantial resources and connections. Your brother's deed appears sound to me, but I'm a small-town lawyer. This may require expertise from Phoenix. As Olivia and Miguel left Hammond's office, they nearly collided with Cole Lawson on the boardwalk. His expression registered surprise, then concern as he noted Olivia's distress. Olivia? What's happened? Anger flared within her. As if you don't know. Confusion crossed Cole's face. I don't understand. Representatives from the Territorial Land Commission appeared at the Circle B yesterday, Olivia informed him coldly. They're questioning my deed and have suspended water rights pending a new survey. Cole's expression darkened. Whitmore. The familiar way he spoke the name only confirmed Olivia's suspicions. So you do know about this? Not in the way you're thinking, Cole replied, his voice low and urgent. Whitmore approached me 2 weeks ago, suggesting he could help resolve the boundary dispute in my favor. I refused his offer. I told him I was working directly with you on a compromise. A convenient story, Olivia retorted, though doubt had begun to creep into her certainty. It's the truth, Cole insisted. Whitmore has done this before, creating disputes, then offering to resolve them for a price. He works for land speculators in Tucson, not the territorial government. Sheriff Wilson emerged from his office, catching the last part of Cole's explanation. Lawson's right, he confirmed reluctantly. Just got a telegram from the governor's office. They have no record of any official review of the Circle B deed, and Whitmore isn't authorized to represent the Land Commission. Relief washed through Olivia, followed immediately by confusion. But if you didn't send him, who did? And why? A grim expression settled on Cole's features. I have my suspicions. This has the hallmarks of Randall Bishop's methods. The railroad investor? Sheriff Wilson asked sharply. Cole nodded. He's been buying up water rights throughout the territory, anticipating the new southern route. I declined to sell him access through Double L land last month. The route would have cut too close to Hope Creek. Understanding dawned. So he's targeting the Circle B instead, Olivia surmised, creating a dispute to drive down the value, then swooping in to purchase at a reduced price. Or simply to pressure me through my neighbors, Cole added. Bishop doesn't respond well to rejection. Sheriff Wilson rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. This changes things. Bishop has powerful friends, but what Whitmore is doing borders on fraud. If we can prove it. We need to return to the Circle B immediately, Miguel interrupted, his expression urgent. If these men are not legitimate officials. The implication hung in the air. The ranch was vulnerable, potentially under threat. I'll come with you, Cole stated, his tone brooking no argument. If Bishop's men are involved, you'll need backup. Despite her lingering doubts, Olivia recognized the wisdom in this. Thank you. They rode hard back to the Circle B, Sheriff Wilson accompanying them. As they crested the final rise overlooking the ranch, smoke was visible rising from the direction of the north pasture. Fire, Miguel said grimly, spurring his horse faster. They arrived to find Pablo and Diego frantically working to contain a blaze that had been set along the creek bank, dangerously close to the dry grass of the north pasture. If it spread to the main grazing land, the entire herd could be at risk. Without hesitation, Cole organized their small group into a firefighting team, directing efforts to create fire breaks and beat back the flames. For 2 exhausting hours they worked, faces blackened with soot, lungs burning from smoke, until finally the fire was contained and extinguished. This was deliberate, Sheriff Wilson declared, examining the remains of an oil-soaked rag found near the origin point. Somebody meant this to spread to the pasture. Whitmore's men, Cole suggested, wiping sweat and soot from his brow. A warning of what could happen if you don't cooperate with their scheme. Olivia surveyed the scorched earth along the creek bank, anger replacing her earlier fear. They could have destroyed everything. But they didn't, Cole reminded her, moving to stand beside her. And now we know what we're dealing with. Sheriff Wilson nodded grimly. I'll ride to the county seat tomorrow. Bring back proper legal authorities. In the meantime, nobody should be alone here. Bishop's men might return. I'll stay, Cole offered immediately. My foreman can handle the double L for a few days. Miguel's expression remained guarded, but he nodded in agreement. Extra guns would be welcome. That evening, after the sheriff departed with promises to return with reinforcements, Olivia found herself on the porch with Cole, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. The events of the day had left little time for addressing the personal tension between them, but now, in the quiet aftermath, it could no longer be avoided. I thought you were behind the Land Commission visit, Olivia admitted softly. After our conversation about the past, it seemed too coincidental. Cole turned to face her, his expression solemn in the fading light. I understand why you would think that. My history doesn't inspire trust. No, Olivia acknowledged, but your actions today do. She paused, gathering her courage. I've been thinking about what you told me about your father, about Jerome Santos, about the man you were, and the man you're trying to become. And? Cole's voice was carefully neutral, but vulnerability lurked beneath the surface. And I believe in redemption, Olivia said simply. I believe people can change when they truly want to, when they work at it every day, through choices large and small. Hope flickered in Cole's eyes. Even someone with as many mistakes as I've made? Especially someone who acknowledges those mistakes, Olivia replied. Who takes responsibility for them and tries to be better? Cole reached out slowly, taking her hand in his. I don't deserve your forgiveness, or your trust. But I want to earn them, if you'll give me that chance. The sincerity in his voice, the warmth of his touch, sent a tremor through Olivia. I think, she said softly, that might be a journey worth taking. Together. The smile that transformed Cole's features then was like sunrise breaking over the mountains, radiant and full of promise. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her fingers. Together, he agreed. The next few days brought significant developments. Sheriff Wilson returned with a U.S. Marshal and official representatives from the territorial government, who confirmed that Olivia's deed was legitimate and that Whitmore had no authority to challenge it. Warrants were issued for Whitmore and his associates on charges of fraud and attempted extortion. Randall Bishop's involvement proved harder to establish legally, though few doubted he was the architect behind the scheme. The Telegraph brought news that similar attempts to manipulate land claims had occurred in 3 other counties, suggesting a broader pattern that territorial authorities were now investigating. Through it all, Cole remained at the Circle B, working alongside Miguel and the others to repair the fire damage and strengthen security around the property. His presence became a natural part of the ranch's rhythm, his expertise complementing Olivia's growing knowledge of the operation. 2 weeks after the fire, with the immediate threat neutralized and autumn firmly established across the landscape, Cole and Olivia rode together to the ridge overlooking both their properties. The afternoon sun bathed the terrain in golden light, highlighting the meandering path of the creek that connected their lands. "I've been thinking about our water rights situation," Cole said, as they dismounted to enjoy the view. "Not as a matter of acquisition, but of partnership." "What kind of partnership?" Olivia asked, intrigued by his tone. "A legal agreement that guarantees water access for both ranches and for Hope Creek Home, regardless of ownership changes in the future," Cole explained. "Shared maintenance responsibilities, shared benefits from any improvements, a solution that respects both our interests." "That sounds eminently reasonable," Olivia observed with a smile. "What happened to the hard-nosed businessman who wanted my land at any cost?" Cole chuckled, the sound warm in the crisp air. "He met a stubborn Easterner who taught him there are better ways to solve problems than force and intimidation." "High praise indeed," Olivia teased, though she was touched by the admission. "There's more," Cole continued, suddenly serious. "I've spoken with Miguel about Jerome, offered compensation for the injuries he suffered, acknowledged my family's responsibility publicly." Surprise and respect mingled in Olivia's response. "That couldn't have been easy?" "It wasn't," Cole admitted. "But it was necessary. Long overdue. Miguel has agreed to forward my letter and offer to his brother in California." He paused. "I can't change the past, but I can try to make amends where possible." Olivia reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "That kind of courage to face one's mistakes openly is rare. I admire it greatly." Cole's gaze softened as it rested on her face. "You've changed me, Olivia Blackburn, in ways I never expected." "We've changed each other," she corrected. "I'm not the same woman who stepped off that stagecoach months ago." "No," Cole agreed with a smile. "You're stronger, wiser, even more beautiful, if that's possible." A blush warmed Olivia's cheeks at the compliment. Cole turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "I never thought I'd feel this way again after Rebecca died," he said quietly. "I believed that part of me was gone forever, the ability to care, to love. I built walls around myself, focused only on acquiring land, expanding the double L, as if that could fill the emptiness. And now?" Olivia asked softly. "Now I find myself thinking about the future again, about possibilities I'd long since abandoned." His gaze held hers steadily. "About a life shared, if you'd consider such a thing." Olivia's heart quickened. "Are you proposing a business arrangement, Mr. Lawson, or something more personal?" A smile curved Cole's lips. "Both, perhaps. A merger of interests, of properties." His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Of hearts." "That's quite an offer," Olivia replied, struggling to maintain her composure despite the joy bubbling within her. "Especially from a man they said was too hard to love." "And yet you've managed it anyway, haven't you?" Cole countered, a hint of wonder in his tone. "Against all odds, against my best efforts to prevent it." "I have," Olivia confirmed, abandoning pretense. "Though I can't say precisely when it happened. Somewhere between arguments over water rights and rebuilding barns, between learning your worst mistakes and witnessing your best qualities." Cole released her hands only to frame her face gently with his palms. "Then say you'll marry me, Olivia. Say you'll build a life with me that combines the best of both our worlds." "Yes," she whispered, tears of happiness blurring her vision. "Yes, I will." His kiss was tender yet passionate, a promise and a claiming all at once. Olivia melted into his embrace, marveling at the journey that had brought her from Boston to this moment, from loss and uncertainty to love and belonging. When they finally broke apart, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "They'll never believe it in town." Cole Lawson, tamed at last. Olivia laughed softly. "Not tamed, just revealed for who you truly are beneath all that gruffness and reputation." "Only to you," he murmured. "Only you have seen the whole truth of me and loved me anyway." They rode back to the Circle B hand in hand, the setting sun casting their joined shadows far across the land they would now share. At the ranch house, Miguel waited on the porch, his expression knowing as he observed their clasped hands and radiant faces. "I see congratulations are in order," he said, a rare smile softening his features. "They are," Cole confirmed. "If we have your blessing." Miguel considered this for a moment. "My brother's letter arrived today. He accepts your apology and your offer. Says true atonement is shown in changed behavior over time." His gaze moved between them. "I have seen that change. So yes, you have my blessing." The simple words meant more to both of them than elaborate endorsements from anyone else could have. Cole extended his hand, which Miguel accepted in a firm handshake that symbolized not just approval of the marriage, but the healing of old wounds. The wedding took place 1 month later, on a clear November day when the distant mountains were dusted with the first snow of the season. The ceremony was held at Hope Creek Home, with Sarah Johnson officiating and the children serving as enthusiastic attendants. The people of Redemption Springs turned out in full force, their initial skepticism about the match having given way to cautious approval and finally genuine celebration. Martha Wilkins wept openly, declaring it the most romantic event in territorial history. Sheriff Wilson gave the bride away, having grown protective of Olivia during her months in Arizona. Even Mrs. Peterson attended, though she maintained that the whole arrangement was highly irregular. As Olivia and Cole exchanged vows beneath an arbor decorated with late-blooming wildflowers and ribbons, the assembled community witnessed not just the union of two people, but of two properties, two visions, two once separate futures now intertwined. "I never imagined finding love again," Cole said in his vows, his voice carrying clearly to all present. "Never imagined finding someone who would see past my defenses, my mistakes, my reputation. You've taught me that it's never too late for redemption, for second chances, for new beginnings." Olivia, radiant in a simple white dress trimmed with lace from Martha's store, replied with equal emotion. "I came west seeking escape, but found purpose instead. Found strength I didn't know I possessed, community I didn't know I needed, and love I hadn't dared to hope for. In you, I've found a partner for whatever lies ahead, the challenges and joys alike." Their kiss sealed promises both spoken and unspoken, witnessed by a community that had come to respect them individually and as a pair. The celebration afterward continued well into the evening, with food and music and dancing under stars that seemed to shine with particular brilliance. Late that night, as they sat together on the porch of what had been the Circle B ranch house, and would now be their shared home until the larger residence they planned was built, Cole drew Olivia close against the chill. "Happy?" he murmured against her hair. "Completely," she confirmed, nestling into his embrace. "Though I still can't quite believe where life has led me." "From Boston schoolteacher to frontier rancher's wife," Cole mused. "Quite a transformation." "Not just a wife," Olivia corrected, turning to face him. "A partner. In everything." Cole smiled, the expression now coming naturally to him after months of Olivia's influence. "A partner," he agreed. "In ranching, in raising those orphans with Sarah, in building something that matters. In life," Olivia added softly. "However long, however challenging, however wonderful," Cole completed, drawing her into another kiss beneath the vast Arizona sky that had become home to them both. 5 years later, the Double Circle Ranch, as their combined properties came to be known, was widely recognized as one of the most prosperous and progressive operations in the Arizona Territory. The water rights agreement Cole and Olivia had developed became a model adopted by other ranchers facing similar challenges, and their innovative breeding programs had improved cattle stock throughout the region. Hope Creek Home had expanded to accommodate more children, with a proper schoolhouse built nearby where Olivia taught regularly, combining her former profession with her new life. Many of the original orphans had grown up and moved on to success, but maintained connections with the couple who had provided stability and opportunity when they needed it most. On a warm spring evening, Olivia sat on the porch of their new home, a spacious yet comfortable residence positioned to overlook both original properties, watching as Cole played with their 3-year-old daughter, Rebecca, named for his first wife, in a gesture of healing that acknowledged the past while embracing the future. Miguel approached from the barn, leading a young colt that had become Rebecca's special favorite. The child squealed with delight, running to greet them with Cole following at a more measured pace. "She's fearless," Miguel observed, as Rebecca confidently stroked the colt's nose, like her mother. "And stubborn like her father," Olivia added with a smile. "A powerful combination," Cole acknowledged, joining Olivia on the porch while keeping a watchful eye on their daughter. "One that will serve her well." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the landscape in the fiery hues that still took Olivia's breath away after all these years, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment of contentment. From the grief and uncertainty of her arrival, through conflict and danger, to love and partnership, a path neither straight nor easy, but ultimately right. Cole seemed to sense her thoughts, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "Not one," Olivia assured him, leaning against his shoulder as their daughter's laughter rang out across the land. They had united through love that defied all expectations. "They said you were too hard to love, but loving you has been the easiest, most natural thing I've ever done." Cole's arm tightened around her waist, his voice rough with emotion. "And the most rewarding choice I've ever made was letting you do it, letting down those walls, letting you in." Together they watched the sun's final descent, secure in the knowledge that what they had built, their ranch, their family, their love, would endure long after they were gone. A legacy of redemption and possibility in a land that forgave nothing but rewarded those with the courage to change, to grow, and above all, to love against all odds.